Ahoy! Welcome to A Hero Story. I think this is episode 298.
It
My
was
name is
supposed to be
Tyler.
300. We're a little soon.
Yeah, we're a little
Yeah.
early on it. My name is Tyler.
My name is Hunter. That's Harper.
Oh, is it me? Oh, hi, I'm
Yeah.
Harp. What's going
And
on?
I'm JD, and we're joined by a very special guest today, a friend of the show who's been on before, Mr. Mark Waid.
Hello,
Mark,
sir.
Ooh,
Mark,
it's
Welcome
been a
thanks
back.
for
while,
returning.
though. It's been a while. It's been 4 years. We
Yeah.
haven't spoken to you since before you came back to DC, which is crazy.
Yeah, some friend. Yeah,
Yes.
friend of the show.
You know,
Acquaintance.
I see you
Acquaintance
at
of
some
the
Comic
show.
Cons.
Yeah.
Every time I see you at a Comic Con, I'm like, you remember when you were on my show that time? And you're like, yes.
We're
I'm
long
I'm
distance. We're long
placating you. Yeah.
distance. Yeah. But yeah, it's great to have you back. So much, obviously, since that initial. Oh my God! I mean, just to
Lots
talk
going on.
about, just to
Yeah.
jump
Oh, yeah.
into. Should we? How should we start? So, do you want to tell us kind of how your journey back into DC began? Because we've been talking about it. Like, there's a long run where you're not at DC Comics.
There is a
And
huge run
That is,
where
I'm
Daredevil.
fascinated by that. Those New 52 through Rebirth, you're not
Right.
there.
I was
Oh,
not
you
welcome
missed all
there.
the classics, Mark. You
Not
missed all the
welcome.
classics like New
I
52.
know, right? I was not welcome there. I was, and I wasn't alone. There were a lot of writers from the 90s who were especially big in the night who were given the door, who were shown the door
Mhm.
because we were perceived somehow as old fashioned or, not capable of taking the risks, the creative risks that people do today or whatever they need to do,
Mhm.
which is
Mhm.
crap. I mean,
Yeah.
so all that said, once we had a regime change in editorial, then that day I got 3 calls from editorial, 2 of them before lunch, going, "Please come back."
It's
We're
interesting.
putting the trunks back on Superman. You can come back now.
Exactly. And at that time, a little before then, I had been asked by a Black Label editor at DC to pitch a Superman project. Well, surely you have some Superman project in your back pocket. I said no. So why not? Because I know I'll never be able to come back to DC. So why would I even
Yeah.
bother?
Mhm.
And then I went home as a favor to her. I went home and I thought about it. And sure enough, I came up with this idea that became the last days of Lex Luthor. And I said,
Mhm.
this will never get approved, but put it in. And, and everybody liked it there. The editor loved it. Everyone right up the chain, not approved. Brian Hitch read it, loved it, came back, said, I'll do it, not approved. So that's the way it went. And then once the regime change happened, last days of Lex Luthor got greenlit that day.
Mhm.
Oh my
Oh, there you
God.
go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you interested
And that was
looking
my
in?
and that was my reintroduction. So I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reading that during that time, the New 52 and the Rebirth era, were you interested like looking into DC, or were you just not really interested at all? Like, do you think you could have had stories in that era, or it wasn't really for you?
I don't think I would have functioned well in the new 52.
No.
Probably not.
Yeah, Rebirth, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no coincidence that Wally West is gone for the New 52 and you couldn't function.
Yeah, I was
back
about
in
to say.
Rebirth,
I
and
wasn't
now
there
you're
either. I
functioning.
know. I've never seen
Can you
it.
imagine that pitch from DC? Like, hey, Mark, you can come back and write the New 52, but any of the stuff that you wrote in the 90s just does not matter anymore. Yeah,
It doesn't count.
Exactly.
literally
Look,
doesn't matter.
That'd be annoying. Yeah.
It served one important function, which is that it was a real cash boost for DC at a time when it needed it.
Mm.
Mhm.
It was a
Mhm.
real PR boost for DC at a time when Marvel was burying it. So I
Mhm.
get it. And on that level, it was very successful. But like a lot of those, you know, ideas that are a little too revolutionary and not taking into consideration fans, it petered out pretty quickly. And so you got Rebirth. And that was a little more aligned to what DC has a history. DC has legacy characters.
Mhm.
You can either sit there and look at them and go, well, that's old stuff. Why aren't we Marvel Comics? Or you can embrace the characters and the history that DC has and run with it and make something interesting out of it. That's what you can
Yeah.
do. And that's my attitude. My attitude is, look, we don't, I got tired of hearing during that era, the dark era, well, where's our Hulk? Where's our Spider-Man? We have Superman. We have Batman. Shut up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's the most Tyler thing I've ever heard. Mark
Shut up.
Waid.
Shut up.
Just shut
You
up.
take those, and
Yeah.
so all this said, I'm back. DC's been great. about letting me do
Mhm.
pretty much whatever I want to do.
Really?
And it's just been, I'm having as much fun writing comics now as I have in, I don't know, forever.
So, do you think
That's great
any of
to
the
hear.
stories that you told at Marvel during that period where you've gone from DC could have been applied to a DC character, like your Daredevil run, for example? Do you think that could have been applied to anyone in DC, or
A
do you think?
Nightwing.
No, because I always start with character, and I always start with, okay,
Hell
who
yeah.
are they, and what can they do? What are their abilities? What are their shortcomings? How do they see the world? And that's unique
Not
for
very well
every
for
character.
Daredevil.
Yeah, he doesn't very well. Yeah.
Right, right. How does he
Wow.
perceive it? But again, how does he perceive the world? How does he move through the world? What are things? There was no point in which I was writing Daredevil when I wasn't somewhere during the day looking around going, okay, how would Matt Murdock perceive this environment, this situation? What am I smelling? What am I hearing? What are the shapes of things? I did that constantly when I was working on Daredevil, because that's what you have to do. You have to wear the suit, man. You got to get in there and write about the superhuman condition.
Yeah.
That's well said.
Hell yeah.
I will. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, I was gonna say human condition.
Oh.
We talk about that on the show all the time.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
I was going to say that kind of leads into Tyler. Did you want to ask your question about DC and Marvel and just like
Oh,
career
yeah, well,
paths that
okay. We were
talking
kind of
about
talking
beforehand?
about it earlier before we started recording, but
Mm.
we obviously on the outside looking in, you're much more of a DC guy. Like
Yeah.
that's the universe you
Mhm.
inhabit. So I was wondering more so the Marvel stuff you write. Not that you don't or wouldn't have a passion for it, but is it anywhere the same like writing the Fantastic Four for you as it is writing Superman or something like that?
In the moment, it is. In terms of, are these dreams I've had forever? Not necessarily, but
Mm-hmm.
in the moment, it has to be in the moment, because otherwise, and you can tell otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not enthusiastic about what I'm writing, and I'm not bringing that same level of energy that I would bring to anything I truly love, you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to do that. I mean, if you're going to go in, go all in.
DC.
Oh,
That's a
all in
reference. That's a
DC.
reference to
There you
DC.
go.
Oh, God
Okay.
damn it.
Yeah,
He's such a company
okay,
man.
we
It's so great.
We got it. We do have quite a few fan questions here, but a lot
Sure.
of our listeners kind of asked, well, quite a few asked around the same thing, and we kind of had questions that could lead into this, and that is,
Yeah, we narrowed it down a little bit.
if you know, how does Dan Mora do it?
I have no idea. I think he's got a basement full of slaves. I don't know, because he is so fast. He always sends me thumbnails every morning to make sure that the layouts are right and that there's room for balloons and all that kind of stuff, which I really appreciate. He sent me one at 8:12, one more page. At 8:12 one morning, he sends me a thumbnail. At 8:20, I wrote him back and said, looks great. At 10:16, he sent the finished page.
Oh my God.
This guy could, if he didn't have like a wife and kids and really sort of had no other interest, he could do 3 books a month. It's incredible.
He's already
Every
doing
book in
2,
DC.
yeah.
Yeah.
We
He
kind
could
of
do
have a
3.
running joke,
And
and I
covers.
think
It's really uncanny.
Mark, I think
Yeah.
it's almost your duty as someone that works with him that the next time he sends some pages through, can you please respond? I'll take more of that. Just
Yeah.
that's our running joke. I'll take more of that.
Take
I think
more
you
of
have
that.
to do it. Oh,
He
give me
knows
more
that
of
already.
that.
He knows that about me
Yeah, of
already.
course he does.
knows,
Yeah.
he knows I treasure him so much.
Mhm.
With him and Chris Somney at my side, we can take on the world, man.
It's
Unstoppable, yeah. I mean, you're taking on the DC universe here. I guess we'll jump into our questions as well, but I'll read the first fan question here.
Yeah.
So, first Flash fan asks, "What are your thoughts on Watchmen being part of the DC universe?"
Oh, great question.
The rebirth
Great
era,
question.
yeah. You
We
weren't
have
there.
thoughts. We
Yeah, I
have
know.
thoughts.
I was against it.
Mhm.
I'm still not thrilled with it, but it has now, through Doomsday Clock, become so interwoven
Mhm.
with some other stuff that either you know about or some stuff that you don't yet know about. And
Okay.
I think I'm just going to have to swallow it and
Yeah.
take. I never would have been the first person to come in and do that. I never would have been the second person to come in and do that. But if I end up being like the 12th person to say, all right, part of this universe, then I fear I'm pretty safe.
Yeah. You mean the more the metaverse aspect of like the Superman is kind of the what did we
The
say
center.
in it?
No,
He's the turtle.
I mean literally Dr.
Oh,
Manhattan monkeying around with stuff.
Oh,
Like
okay.
the meta angle of it, I love this idea
Mhm.
that the entire DC universe, every rebirth, every continuity change, every retcon revolves around Superman. That totally works for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
It's
the best
just
part of that
like
book that really doesn't need to be a Watchmen book to tell that aspect of the story. Because
Yeah.
it's a Superman story, but it's also like, what if it was Dr. Manhattan that just
All of
did
a
it
sudden,
all? It's
the
like,
comedian's
okay.
in the water, and you're like, how does that?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Like I know how much we love Doomsday Clock and also yet love ripping pieces of it apart. Like, why does the comedian show up to just disappearing? And like,
It was a really good piece of work. It really was. And I'm not going
it
to knock
was.
anybody's work on this
No,
stuff.
it's yeah.
And I think it would have been a huge misstep had that been the very first crossover between, or the very first time anyone but Alan had taken on those characters. By that
Mm.
time, you had before Watchmen, you had the Rorschach
Mm.
book, you had, a bunch of other stuff going on. So,
Mhm.
Even the movie, yeah.
yeah, movie.
Yeah, thank you.
It's genuinely one of the questions I was going to ask.
It's rare that you see a movie where the first 2 minutes are awesome and then it just gradually gets worse and worse
But
and
but
worse.
Mark
Once the
Waid,
Bob
didn't you
Dylan
know
fades
that that
out.
is the most comic accurate movie of all time? Did you know that?
They took the panels and they put them up.
He's fine. He's done. He's like,
Don't.
hey guys, I know I said an hour, but I gotta go.
I know exactly. Yeah, I need a hello, mom. I need a ride. Can you pick me up? Yeah,
I kind of wanted to ask another question relating to Dan
Yeah.
Mora. This one
Yeah.
more so about World's Finest. And I love how World's Finest is kind of like a microscopic view of the DC universe where you take all these lower, lesser characters like, say, the Doom Patrol or the Metal Men or Metamorpho, and it's through the lens of Batman and Superman. So
Mhm.
my question is more like, did you get that? Was that initially your pitch for it? Or did you kind of get that vibe for the book, seeing Dan Mora's art and just wanting him to draw these older characters?
It became that. It became wanting to see who else I could throw at Dan to make cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the exact moment that happened, but to backtrack on your question a little bit, it wasn't part of my original pitch. But when I got in there and started blocking out that first story and thought the Doom Patrol would be helpful,
Mm-hmm.
and then realizing that Batman and the Doom Patrol have never had a scene together, never, I don't even know if they've ever met.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that became the inspiration for all the crossovers at that point. It became who has not
Mm.
spent time with each other. Supergirl and Dick Grayson have never, to the best of my knowledge, have an adventure together. So let's do that. Superman has never met this character. This character's never met this character. Let's do that. Batgirl's never met Jimmy Olsen. Let's do that.
The ultimate toy
And
box, like
yeah, and so
two
that's
characters
that's the fun,
together.
right. That's the fun of it to me is putting characters together that you don't normally see together. And as far as Dan goes, I mean, the moment when I knew he just had magic was when he designed the Boy Thunder character
Mm-hmm.
in issue 7, I think it was.
Mhm.
And I sent him an old Kurt Swan costume design from 1968. And I said, this is just a starting point. If you don't like this, throw it out. It needs updating. It needs a bunch. I'm just sending this to you as the seed of an idea. You don't even have to use it. And instead, what he drew was exactly that. Exactly that. But it
Yeah.
looked cool. And it was
Yeah.
that way going through the rest of the run with him. It just, I can throw the most ridiculous old villain at him, and they'll come back and they'll be like, oh, that is awesome looking. Metamorpho looks better than he's ever looked
Oh my
before.
God, yeah.
He's so good at that.
I was just saying that Swamp Thing drawn in like this week's issue of Justice League is my favorite look of Swamp Thing, even though it is just Swamp Thing. He looks like Swamp Thing there.
It was high on
Yeah,
Dan's list of characters. When we first started on World's Finest, he said, "Who do you want to draw?" And he had a list of 6 or 7 characters, and that was high up on the list. And I kept promising him, "We'll get to that character, I promise." So we did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad. I'm glad, even
I
though
was
it looks like
actually,
he
I
burned
was,
up this issue, but
I was just about to ask, like, does he ever say to you, like, "Hey, is there any way we can get, this in a story? Because I really want to draw this." Like, is
Yeah.
that
Oh, yeah.
is
I
that
mean,
how the
not
process works?
not frequently, but he has. If he did it all the time, it would be difficult to pull it off. But he does it so rarely that, frankly, yeah, sure.
Yeah, you
What?
invite it. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially
Mhm.
with Justice League Unlimited, he's just like we've got the whole DC universe to play with. So, if he wants to draw, 0 year Batman, I'll find a way to make that happen.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
I mean, we've
Uh,
talked about on the show for the longest time that like Justice League is like probably DC's most mishandled book, especially like you go back to the 2000s of Avengers and how well that was done, in that new
Mhm.
Avengers era, and we're like, the Justice League cartoon got it best, right? With the
Yep.
use every character. Like, why do they never do that in the books? And not to say that there's been great Justice League runs. Obviously, Grant Morrison, and obviously you worked on a bunch of that too in JLA. Even Jeff's New 52, even though it's a smaller team, has that like great Justice League feel. But like in recent years, like from 2016 on, basically Rebirth on, it felt like Justice League was just never done right. And it's like now we're finally using Justice League to their max potential, right? JLU, throw everyone at the board.
Well, that was,
mhm.
yeah, that was editor Paul Kaminsky's concept, and but I was the perfect guy to write that in his
Mhm.
opinion. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna, I can't say that about myself.
My
That's
opinion.
egotistical.
No,
You are.
do it. Go
We all
on.
agree.
Our
Go
opinion,
on.
yes.
Because of my wide breadth of knowledge of the entire DC universe and all the characters, and the fact that I'm not shy about looking at stuff from the last year, the last 5 years, the last 10 years. I'm not beholden to only Silver and Bronze Age characters. I mean, there's a lot of awesome DC characters just in the last few years. So let's go across the generations. Let's cherry pick from everybody.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that's well said.
Yeah.
I just want to ask, I really loved your very short run on Shazam with Dan Mora.
Thank you.
And
Mm.
I was curious, since it ended at issue 9, were there more plans moving forward with the Captain, or did something happen where it just ended suddenly?
I mean, nothing happened per se as I just got
Mhm.
overwhelmed with work. That was really it. And
You
also
were ready.
without, yeah, and also without Dan, look, I got great artists to come in after Dan, really good ones. But without Dan, it was just that missing that special thing that that special affinity I had for it. And I also
Mhm.
kind of feel like in the 6 issues that we did, I might have said most everything I want to say about the captain,
Oh, there you
including
go.
giving him his name back,
Yeah.
or at
Yeah.
least part of
Thank,
it.
thank you for
Yeah.
that.
All
I
right,
wanted to
perfect.
ask
Thank you.
you another Justice League related question. This
Yeah.
one going back to when you wrote Justice League in the early 2000s, specifically about Tower of Babel. Did you have any idea how that would impact just the Batman character? How
No.
like he's become Bat God and the prep time argument?
Prep
Did you have
time,
any
yeah.
idea that
Oh,
was going to
God.
influence the character the way it did?
No, I might have gone back and killed baby Mark Waid in
I was
time.
gonna say,
But
yeah.
that's,
You
you
feel like
know,
Oppenheimer.
yeah, sometimes. I mean, the thing is, if you're working ahead of your time or you're working on stuff that you're passionate about, sometimes people catch the passion without catching the reasoning behind it. So,
Mhm.
I mean, this is why, I mean, we went through a big chunk of the aughts where Kingdom Come was sort of a roadmap for the DC universe. And I was standing there going, no, 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 it's a cautionary fable. It's not
Mm.
supposed to we're not supposed to go down this road. So stop. And people didn't stop. And with Batman, yeah, certainly wasn't my intent to make him, Bat God, but that does seem to have been the kickoff point
Mhm.
where from that point on, he's not losing any fights and he's not beating up muggers anymore.
Yeah. And it's
Tyler, the way
interesting.
you phrased that question was basically,
Oppenheimer's great.
"Hey, Mark Waid, why did you screw up Batman?"
Like, because
No,
it's
I
interesting
look,
when you
yeah,
read Tower of
yeah,
Babel, Batman is clearly the villain of it, or he's at least,
yeah.
partially. And also, there's the whole other plot about people forgetting language, and people narrow it down to just Batman has prep time and he beats up the Justice League. It's like that doesn't necessarily happen in
Yeah,
that
no.
book. There's
Oh,
way more to that book.
there's way more to that book, and the piece that people still miss to this day is in terms of what his responsibility was and why the Justice League had a right to be angry at him. It wasn't because he had doomsday plans.
Mm.
That makes perfect sense. Of
Mhm.
course, I mean, if you walked up to Superman and said, as a friend of his, and walked up and said, "Listen, in case you ever go nuts, we've got a contingency plan." That would make him happy. That would make him relieved. But
Yeah.
it's not telling them that you
Keeping it
have
a secret.
contingency plans. That lack of transparency, that was his sin, and that was why he deserved to get booted out of the Justice League at that point.
Mhm.
That's the
Mhm.
But
lesson he had to learn is about being a teammate and a partner.
and that story almost like goes beyond like just comic books because that's kind of like in the wake of the Patriot Act and stuff like that was happening in the American government at the time of like not knowing exactly what's happening behind the scenes was kind of like you can almost relate it to Batman. Like early
Yeah.
2000s. That's how it was.
Yeah.
Personally, I think if Batman and Superman ever fight, you should just get them to say each other's mother's names, and that would probably sort it all out.
That
Two
might
Snyder
fix the
movies reference,
problem.
and he's shaking his head at both, folks.
I've still got. That's still my question in the future. Should I ask it now?
Just
Maybe
ask
I
it
should
now,
just
yeah.
ask it now.
Okay.
Mark Waid, there is a new DCU universe, DC universe, whatever, with James Gunn at the helm. Superman's coming out. Tyler is losing his mind. I think this movie
could not
being
be
good
more
or bad
excited.
is like this is Tyler's life is in James Gunn's hands right
Yeah.
now. But now that the dust has settled, it's all said and done. What are your thoughts on the DCEU spanning 2013 to 20 whenever the hell Aquaman 2 came out? Thoughts?
I think
2023?
my thoughts are I think Wonder Woman was a really good movie.
I liked it too. I recently rewatched it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
pretty
good movie.
good. That's pretty
That's
good.
What about Zack Snyder's Justice League re-edit thing?
I think Wonder Woman was a really good movie,
Nice.
and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's
And
my question.
What about James Gunn Superman? Are you excited for that?
Yeah, that I'm really excited for.
Man.
That's good.
I have no inside intel, but all the people who work on the Superman books, and I was invited, but I wasn't able to go because I was going to another show. They all went down to Atlanta for a couple of days. There's pictures online of them meeting with James Gunn and getting an inside look. And nobody's telling me anything, but everybody I trust came back and said, "Oh, they've got it. This is good."
Okay.
And that trailer just sent shivers up my spine.
Crypto, yeah.
I think I might be all of those 50 million views at this point.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of go off the back of that. James Gunn, obviously, Superman is the biggest character that he could possibly do, but he's also obviously had this affinity for the smaller characters.
Yeah.
Is there a single character, or maybe a team or something that you have been waiting your entire life to see that you really think or want James Gunn to adapt to the big screen?
It's a good question because some of them, like the Doom Patrol, have been done really well recently. The Doom Patrol series was really good. I don't want to say all my life, but man, Impulse is just sitting there. Impulse is just a softball. Somebody do something.
He was on CW, right? Yeah.
He was on
Do you know what?
I have yelled from the tops of roofs that you need to read Impulse from your run all the way to the end of it, and even when you weren't on the book anymore. That book is great. It is so slept on. A side character, it would never happen nowadays, but a side character went for 89 issues, 92 issues.
That would never happen today.
Back then, Robin had a book that was over 100 issues.
Yep.
Superboy had 90 issues, and Impulse had 90 issues. Amazing time.
Yeah. I will say this for DC right now. DC is a lot more hesitant to pull the trigger in a panic on books, which I like. There's not, at Marvel, all you get is 5 issues. I mean, that's the law. That's you, unless it's Amazing Spider-Man and you're relaunching with #1. It's okay. We'll give you 5 issues, maybe 4, and unless you set the world on fire, that's it. And I mean, that was the case with Doctor Strange when we relaunched it as Surgeon Supreme. And nobody told me. So I had plans for quite some time, and I was told, no, 5 issues.
I hate you for bringing that up. You do not understand how much I love that run and how much I wanted it to keep going. You have no idea.
There's at least 2 issues written that you'll never see. There's at least one issue
stop that.
Why would you that you will never see? I know. The whole issue that focuses on Kermit and why he is such a Doctor Strange fan. And
why would you do that, Jimmy? Why would you specifically do that to me?
I know.
He's the Strange fans.
I do. Look, I'm not. Marvel has its own business methods, and it's not fair for me to just sweepingly call them short-sighted because there's information I don't have a piece of. There's information I don't have a part of. So they make their decisions. However, they make their decisions. I just am more impressed with DC's willingness to let a book find its footing if it can.
Yeah,
you brought up
more of a chance.
You brought up Doom Patrol before, really good show. People like it. It spun off of another really good TV show. What was that TV show called? What did it spin off from? Do you remember Mark Waid? Do you know what that show was?
the fuck Batman Teen Titans? Is that what the one?
There it is.
Great show. When we previously talked to you, you said that it was an acquired taste.
Yeah, that's something.
It has since
I think that's
ended.
still I think it's still a fair thing to say. I still have not, and this is not a reflection of quality. It's just there's only so many hours in the day. I've not made my way through all of it yet.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll
But
get
so
back
many
to it at
others.
some point for sure.
I'm sure there's no rush.
There's stuff I love. There's stuff Wonder Girl looked awesome, and the
Yeah.
Superboy and Crypto stuff was pretty cool. I thought what I saw of the third season really felt better to me than
Lex
the
Luthor.
relentless darkness of the first season. But again, look, there's room in the DC pantheon for all kind of tones. They don't all have to be the same tone. And if you want to do dark and grim, be my guest. As long as there's an audience for it, have at.
Like the
Maybe the Teen
DCEU, which
Titans
is one of
are-
your favorites, I believe.
Right? Well, as long as let me rephrase it. As long as it doesn't become the only tone
Yeah.
or the,
yeah,
the
okay.
sole
fair
tone
enough.
of the DC
Yeah,
universe,
correct.
then I'm okay with it.
Mhm. I guess we'll go to another fan question.
Yeah.
Logan Russell 04 says, "What are your thoughts on Diamond going bankrupt recently and the effect it will have on the industry?"
It's this. I don't think it's as seismic as it would have been 5 years ago. I think that Lunar Distribution has picked up so much of their accounts and is capable clearly of delivering, but not on Diamond's level. I mean, they just don't have the manpower that at this point, they just don't have the infrastructure. They may at some point, maybe they're building it out right this second. But for the time being, my fear is that the really smaller publishers, the Mad Caves, the Vaults, the American Mythologies, and everything, I think I don't, I think it's going to be a much harder road for them. I also know that Image, unless I'm mistaken, what I'm hearing is that Image, now that they have broken away from Diamond or have recut a deal with Diamond or whatever it is, their discount levels to retailers have cut drastically. So, for instance, if you were a store that was ordering enough Image comics to get 50% off of cover, and that you're buying it at 50% retail for wholesale, now it's 40%. And it sounds like pennies, but that adds up and it's a huge chunk per store. So,
Yeah.
Stores
DC will
which
be
are
fine, Marvel will
already
be fine.
struggling.
Yeah, but I worry about the smaller publishers.
Yeah, I guess it is worrisome.
I wanted to ask about, we had a few announcements today, actually.
Yeah.
Well, first, a couple days ago, we got the Summer of Superman kind of, it's a single issue, right? The
Right.
Summer of Superman and that James Gunn reposted it. That's you, Dan Slott's on that book, right? Maura
Yep.
Williamson. Is that you guys coming together as a bunch of writers and deciding like, oh, we need this? Or is that a directive like from James Gunn down? This is Superman season. This is what we're doing. We're pushing this character.
It's not from James. It is more of editorial going, well, we're stupid for not, if we don't have product out there for the movie.
Yeah.
And introductory product. I mean, this whole point of the Superman one shot is it's a story that has 3 parts, one set in the past, one set in the present, one set in the future, but it is specifically engineered to put in the hands of anybody who hasn't read a Superman comic in a while. Here's where we are. If this is your first Superman comic, this is a good one to have.
Okay. That's interesting to know, because I would have figured it seems like, and maybe I don't know anything. I don't know anything, but it seemed like he is much more in conversation with comic book writers, editors than, let's say, like Feige is at Marvel. And is that influence felt at all?
I don't know. I think that, I don't know what goes on between him and like really upper management at DC and Warner Brothers in terms of the comic stuff. My suspicion is he's so busy working on making the movies and TV stuff great that he doesn't really have time to make requests about Catwoman. But I don't know. I do know that whatever influence you're feeling is probably less directly mandated and more just us looking at that stuff going, wow, that's pretty cool. Let's go. Let's take that tone.
Feeling the hype of it.
Yeah. It's the same Marvel. It's, unless things have changed in the last few years, it's not like Feige ever came down the hall and said, do this, this, and this. He was always really good about not letting the tail wag the dog. He was always really good about comics are what they are, and we draw from the comics. And so, for instance, nobody came down the hall and said, Tony Stark now has to sound exactly like Robert Downey Jr. It was more that the people who were
We're
writing
talking
Iron
about Iron
Man,
Man.
including myself included at the time, were like, no, that's what he sounds like. I mean, that's
Yeah.
such a good casting that why would you not want our comics Tony Stark to
And
sound like that?
next is Doctor
This is
Doom.
my conversation.
Yeah.
That's
That's going to be interesting. Doom is a really hard voice to get for some people,
Yeah.
not for me, but for some people, it's really
For
hard to get.
some lesser artists.
And I can't see, yeah, and I can't see. I think we're going to have to. I think we're going to have to give him some slack here. I can't see Robert Downey Jr. pontificating in quite the same way that Doom does. But he's an actor. Let him make his choices.
Mhm. Well, maybe following up on that, because there was an announcement today that you're returning to write some Fantastic Four fanfare, right? That's what the book's
Yeah.
called. Do you want to talk about that?
Mhm.
How it feels to go back into those characters?
That's it. Yes. I mean, first of all, I didn't know the announcement was made today, but that's cool. It's just a
Yes.
one-off. It's just,
Hours ago.
it's an anthology book. It's a one-off, but it's, Tom Brevoort extended the offer to me, and I said I can't. The continuity and by the way, I love what they're doing. I love what Ryan North and his artists are doing in Fantastic Four right now. I think it's my favorite Marvel book.
Mine too.
Oh, it's so good.
But it's moving so fast, especially with the One Nation Under Doom stuff. I can't hit current continuity because it's such a
hard to
moving
keep up.
target at this moment. So I said, if you'll let me do something that really concentrates on the rivalry and pranks between Ben and Johnny, then I'm in. And I came up with a 10-pager that was just so much fun to write because I don't get a chance to write comedy nearly as much as I would love to. And this is just straight up comedy.
Oh, that's good.
Something that is missing from a lot of Fantastic Four comics too. Like, so after I read your run, I went back and read the original Lee Kirby stuff, and I went all the way up to 125. And I mean, Ben and Johnny are always at each other's throats, and a lot of it is like repeated stuff. Obviously, that's how comics were back then. But like, it's golden stuff that even 50, 60 years later is like still good content, and like it's still entertaining to watch them go back and forth. And then rereading your run after reading the Lee Kirby stuff, I was like, this might be the most slept on comic ever. Like Jack Kirby and Todd, like that comic is so good.
It's that original. And by the way, you picked about the right time to check out with about 125 or so.
Yes.
It's not like it took a huge giant nosedive down. That's about the time I started reading Fantastic Four. So I don't dislike the book, but looking at it objectively, the 110s, 120s is about the time that it really just became repetitive. And
I stopped Amazing Spider-Man and Fantastic Four at like the same point, like 125 on like about each of them is where I stopped.
Yeah. It's about the time that Stan came down the hall and said, we don't want change anymore. We want the illusion of change. And that became the mantra at Marvel.
Yeah.
Frustrating as it is, yeah.
Just to kind of go to your Justice League run here, going back a little bit right before it for DC All In, when you had that like first kind of free comic book day book. It's revealed that Darkseid has a role in kind of both this universe and the Absolute universe, and Darkseid kind of vanished there. Are you working with the Absolute team, like Scott Snyder and Jason Aaron, about Darkseid or a future event,
Yes.
or are you? Oh,
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, we're very much in conversation about this. I mean, clearly we're going somewhere. And that's all I can say at this point.
So
but
that's what we've been wanting to know. Like, there is a plan that you guys are heading towards.
There's absolute, no pun intended. There's absolutely a plan. Yes,
absolutely.
DC Secret Wars coming in like 10 years. I can feel it.
This was the thing that was announced also today, was that you have a crossover coming up that's going to kind of tie into the Darkseid stuff.
Yeah, and but the big thrust of it is, well, I've been wanting to do a crossover between World's Finest and Justice League for a little while. It only made sense. I'm writing both books. Dan can do the covers on both books. Dan's doing Justice League. And all we have to do is find some time travel mechanism to make it work. And we did. And we ended up with a giant story that starts in Justice League 6 as kind of a prologue, then World's Finest 38, then World's Finest Annual, then Justice League 7, then bouncing back to World's Finest 39.
Love that.
And then Justice League, I think 8 and 9 is the big finish. And it's a big sprawling epic across both timelines with the Legion of Doom.
It's a Grodd story, it says.
It's a Grodd story, but it's, the basic thrust of it is he wants to put the band back together. He wants to put the Legion of Doom back together.
It's interesting
The
that's
problem,
him. Yeah, I like that.
yeah. The problem
Feels
is, of
like
course,
such a
yeah. I mean, the problem with doing that is that Luther's reformed right now, and
Mhm.
she just kind of reformed, and Sinestro's off in space being kind of an anti-hero. So what do we do?
Mhm.
And
Okay.
you'll have to read the book to see.
I like that. That's a good way for them to return because they were like the focus of, I guess, post Rebirth, where
Scott
it's the year of
Snyder's
the
run.
villain.
Scott's
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
and the Scott Snyder run. Yeah,
Yeah. So they were all like the focus of these are the main villains. And there was the
yeah.
Justice Doom War. And then I guess we haven't seen them since.
They
So
kind of caused Pearl Harbor too. Like it was an interesting time.
That was a
What?
weird, yeah.
forgot
I was
about
gonna
that.
say
Yeah.
those crossovers like that feel so inherently DC. I mean, you have stuff like that in Marvel, but I remember like Mark in your Flash run, obviously with Green Lantern stuff, it was always part one in one book, part two in another, and bouncing back and forth. I always loved that stuff because
Yeah,
like I would always read them like in the trade, and so you would get to the page and it would come with like random Green Lantern issue, and I'm like, oh, this
Right.
is a crossover, and I'd be on
And the
like the
thing is,
DC
but
Wikia
the
trying to figure
skill
it
of
out.
it, I mean, the real skill is trying to write it in such a way where if you're reading only World's Finest, you're
Mm,
still getting a story. If you're reading only
yeah.
Justice League, you're still getting a story. And I think I've been able to do that pretty well with the help of Christopher Cantwell, the writer of
Hey.
Challengers. He wrote Iron
Yeah.
Man a while back.
Yeah.
He's doing really good stuff. He is he's co-writing the World's Finest Annual with me because I
Oh,
am
nice.
just buried. But also he's
Yeah.
really
Yeah. Of
good.
course.
He's real, and I love what we've come up with.
Cool.
I actually had a question about it's of course selfish because I always got asked about Flash, but the Flash redesign for Justice League like Unlimited, I think number one was like where we really start to see it with the black and the arm and no
Yes.
longer having the
Yeah.
white eyes. It feels very like different for Wally West because obviously he's kind of since your run and since I guess Mester Loeb's really at like issue 50 when he gets like the white eyes and all that, he's separated from Barry's suit. Like this feels like now almost going back to like a more Barry type suit. Did you have any hand in that, or is that like more artist?
I don't know. I didn't have a hand in it. I'm not sure where that came from.
Yeah,
I
like
kind of dig. I like it more than I thought I would. My first
Mhm.
impulse was to say, it's such a classic costume. But I do kind of like what they've done, and I am really impressed with the fact that it never even occurred to anybody for 30 years to give Wally a completely different costume.
yeah.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean,
That's a good
you
point.
blew in
What
with
about
the,
this one?
yeah, we don't count that. That's just, oh my God. I mean, the sad thing is the Kid Flash costume is one of the very best costumes in all of comics ever.
I agree. Yeah.
It is so beautifully designed with the open cowl so the hair can blow because you're running at super speed,
Mhm.
but it doesn't work in red because redheads don't look good in red.
Blends. Yeah.
And it's
Blends.
Mhm.
weird. It's just a weird color blob. And it's just this sort of
I agree.
reddish
Like,
orange on top of red. Yeah.
Never liked
you
it
could always
either.
do the Carmine Infantino where when he gets the Kid Flash suit, it sprays out stuff that changes the color of his hair.
Yeah. It comes
Some
out
of
of the
the early
ring
Flash
that
issues,
gives him this costume. I know.
they're
That-
so ridiculous.
yeah, I know. We got rid of that pretty quick.
One of
Guess what,
my
John?
favorite comic book designs is probably this Bruce Wayne, Dr. Manhattan. What do you think of that, Mark?
That's pretty good. Actually, it's pretty good.
You approves of that.
God, I still remember the
best,
first time.
like the three best costumes in all of comics are Spider-Man,
Yep.
Kid Flash, and Hal Jordan Green Lantern.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It is such a great design, and it's something subtle about it that people didn't catch on to, which was if you look at the green in it, like it's on the shoulders. I mean, not they've recently mucked around a little bit, which is fine. It was the shoulders, and then it kind of curved in the middle, and it
Mhm.
came back out the waist like an hourglass,
Mhm.
which is appropriate for somebody whose power ring runs
Yeah.
24 hours and then it's out of juice.
Oh, I didn't think of it like
I
that.
never thought
That's
about that.
really
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
In
Thank you.
That's
in my head,
awesome.
it was
This is why
always
you get
kind
paid
of
the
like a
big bucks,
Oh,
wrestling.
dude.
it's
Like,
so right. Holy hell.
Yeah.
That's,
I guess I was gonna ask, and I'll add this to a fan question because I'll say Andre Three Stacks asked, "What are your thoughts on Kyle Rayner, and who is your favorite human Green Lantern?"
Kyle Rayner.
I like Kyle. I didn't think I was going to like Kyle, but and he appeared under not the best circumstances, editorially speaking. But I thought it was really smart to give an artist the Green Lantern ring, and he ended up being a pretty cool character. I mean, I know Grant thought he was his favorite Green Lantern at the time when he started writing him, and I felt
Wow.
the same. I really liked him. I don't love the mask, I don't love the suit, but I like him. I still I still prefer Hal, if only because he was my first Green Lantern. Um,
Mhm.
the same way that, some people think Tim Drake is their favorite Robin, or some people think that Jason is their favorite Robin because that was their first Robin.
Mhm.
Is
Okay.
it true that you wanted to use Kyle Rayner in Kingdom Come and Alex Ross said no?
No, no,
I heard
that was straight. That was all straight up Alex's design. Alex designed all those characters, a lot of them before we even had a story. And so the design was sort of like, okay, it's probably Alan Scott, but we're going to hedge our bets and not say specifically because it's just more interesting that way.
God tier stuff. Always. It's like a Bible I keep in every drawer in my house. Like I just gotta have it close by.
I love so much dangling a piece of Mark Waid material in front of Mark Waid and going, "This is great, man. This
Yeah.
is awesome."
It was literally like when I went up to his
I
comic,
mean,
like I'm holding like 10,000 Flash issues, and I'm just like, it's hard to like talk to someone like Mark Waid because it's like I'm like that Chris Farley bit where on SNL when he's talking to Paul McCartney. I'm just like,
Do you,
I was like,
do you
remember
remember
when
the
you were in
time?
the Beatles? Like,
Do you
that
remember?
was great.
Do you remember writing Kingdom Come? Yeah.
Like, do you remember when you wrote Return of Barry Allen? Yeah, I
Right.
really like that.
Yeah.
I need 12 of you at every convention. Yes.
there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll jump to a Flash fan question here real quick. Mikhail Garcia asks, "Hello, Mark. I'm a huge fan of your work. Did you get any questions for Absolute Flash when it was being created, since you are a pivotal part of the Flash mythos?"
No, but I didn't take it personally. I think Jeff Lemire, I know what Jeff Lemire's working on, and I really like the take.
Looks really cool.
The
Yeah,
suit's awesome. Yeah.
it is. I think the Absolute books are great. I don't know that I would have an absolute take on any specific character because I
Okay.
just like romping around in the DC universe that I know. But
Mhm.
so all that said, I mean, I do think Absolute Superman's great. I think that's my favorite of all of them. But they're all good books, and I know what Jeff has in mind with Absolute Flash, and I'm 100% behind it.
Cool. All right. Do you
I
guys have
wanted to
any?
That's
ask
nice.
more about Absolute Power, writing that with Mora.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to ask when it became so. Was your original pitch? Because obviously, when you read it, a lot of it is about Amanda Waller manipulating the masses into believing a certain thing, using the media, using AI. Was that always the initial idea of it, or did that just come to you like obviously watching the news?
It came to me before AI really became such a topic of conversation in the back half of 2024.
Mm-hmm.
It was in my brain a little bit before that, but the the basics of Absolute Power were to some degree handed to me. We want to do a big event. We want to pay off all the Amanda Waller stuff we've been building all this time. We want to be able to spin a new Justice League out of it. What do we do? And so that just became a conversation between editor Paul Kaminsky and I, just knocking stuff back and forth. And so with Amanda, I just kind of played the cards I was dealt. She's kind of gone off the deep end at this point. She's not the Amanda Waller of 1988. And if you miss that Amanda Waller, I understand. But I play the cards I'm dealt, and I think we did a pretty good job.
Yeah. Well, I think Absolute Power, a lot of us were itching for that kind of Justice League story. Again, there was the whole era where the Titans took over. And for a lot of us, it felt like a genuine step of DC going, okay, we're trying something new. But at the same time, it really kind of fell flat because I feel like there wasn't a lot of push behind it necessarily.
It was definitely the plan was definitely we need to re-elevate the Titans because everybody remembers when it was our best-selling book by far.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the lesson, and again, I think everybody did a great job I think Tom Taylor did a terrific job on that book. I think that every effort was made, but you can't really force that stuff. You can't sit down and go, okay, we're going to produce what is going to be our best-selling book. You've got, sometimes you get the wind at your back. If you know it's Stan Moore and you know it's the Justice League, then you've got a pretty good chance. But but other than that, you don't know. I mean, I love reminding people that not once but twice, Green Arrow was our best-selling comic book. How is that possible?
Yeah.
Well, anything can happen.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I think that maybe the way they went, like looking back, because obviously hindsight is always going to be 2020. Maybe more in the way that it was sold was like it's Titans, but it's also Justice League. Like they didn't. If they would have had a definitive title like called Justice League Legacy or something like that, like could that have maybe been better? Could that have been more widely accepted? Like I kind of wonder if sometimes it's just how it's titled makes it work better or
If
worse,
they just had been the Justice League in
or if they
Yeah,
general.
just
but I
was
don't know.
already.
But then it's not elevating the Titans. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's
Then you're
true.
not getting. I mean, in a perfect world, you elevate the Titans to the point where you have then two franchises that are awesome and kicking ass and selling a bunch of books.
Mhm.
So just relegating them to just be the next Justice League doesn't get you that same bang for your buck. Again, I think every effort was made. And it just there's always just a million forces that and a million factors you can't control as a creative person or as an editorial team. It just but some one of them is like I said, it's really hard to decide how well the book is going to sell and then figure out what that book is going to be. It kind of needs to go the other way around.
Because it's interesting that Marvel, you kind of get all these different ecosystems of characters. You get the X-Men, you get the Avengers, you get, Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four. But at DC, while there is, the layers of characters, everything is kind of under this Justice League umbrella where like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, they're always going to be top. Is
Right.
that like, do you find that to be limiting, or do you feel like the Justice League umbrella kind of encompasses everything?
I
Whereas
think
not
the
everyone
latter.
can be an Avenger.
I think the latter. I think that the idea of the Justice League umbrella covers everybody is a pretty cool idea. As long
I think so too.
as long as I make a point and don't lose sight of the fact that we need to remind people that it doesn't mean the Titans are subservient to the Justice League. It doesn't mean the JSA is subservient. It is more about the idea that we're working together as equals, so we can share our resources, so we can pool our power, so we can pool our brain trust and get it all together. The Justice Society has access to stuff that the Justice League doesn't. The Titans do too. Let's pull all that stuff together.
I like that.
That's very cool.
I guess
oh man,
yeah, go for it.
Can
Go
I
for it.
ask?
You got
Can
it.
I ask my very serious question?
Oh, here we go.
Sure.
Go for it.
This is my only probably deadly serious question. So, Mark Waid, regarding the DCEU, no, I'm kidding. Right. So this is quite self-serving. These boys here know about it already, but inspired by this guy up here, you can see all the Stephen King books.
Yeah.
I've decided, well, not decided, I've done it. I've written the first draft of a horror novella, and I'm currently in the editing stage of it. Now, writing it was a dream, felt like the language, the characters, dialogue, all of it comes so naturally, so easily. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, right, I need to, refine this and blah, 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 blah. And it is difficult. It's difficult
Yes.
to look at things, break things apart and go, does this work? Does it not? Am I adding too much here? Have I not added enough? I was just curious, do you have any tips, probably as a writer? I don't know if you know that you're a writer, but do you have any tips about editing, leaving work where it is? Like, okay, I've done well there the first time. I don't need to necessarily add or take away there. Yeah. Do you have any writing tips, I think, is what I want.
I mean, I was exercising them pretty heavily today because I'm working on a script, and I had a vague idea of the scenes I was writing, but I didn't have them locked down in my head. So I'm just kind of feeling it out as I go and doing a lot of typing and then a lot of backspacing. But what I was reminded of was you've just got to cut anything that doesn't contribute to the story. You just get anything that doesn't contribute to the story, as lovely as it might be, just has to go, whether it's a line of dialogue or a moment or a paragraph. Everything has to, every scene in a good story has to follow one of two words. It has to be either therefore or however, right? This happens, therefore, as a consequence, this happens. As a consequence of that, that happens. Or as a consequence of this, this is the expectation. However, it takes a turn and it goes this way. So as long as you can knit your scenes together with one of those two words, you've got a spine of a story. If there's anything that doesn't connect with one of those two words, it needs to go. It's not there. It's just fun. It could be a fun moment, but and all, yeah. I mean, you've got a little more leeway as a prose writer than we do as comics because we're in a very set format where the language is like haiku, where you've got 20 pages. So
and also like this guy's probably the wrong person to take inspiration for because he loves to start a thing and then just go on a tangent and then come back and then go on a tangent.
Yeah, but you know what? It all comes together. That's why he's Stephen King. It all comes together in the end. So,
when this is kind of a two-pronged question, but it kind of bounces off that. So when you were a young writer, did you lean on any other like older writers who knew the craft, and then now that you're like a much more veteran writer, do any young writers lean on you at all and ask for advice?
Um, not not really. I mean, they could if they wanted to. They got my number, but
I
I
have
guess
many
they
questions, and I do have your email, so that's good to
I
know.
guess they know
That was so
everything.
sweet. It was like, hey, if
Yeah.
you guys want to reach out, I'll read it.
They do lean on me too when somebody takes on a Superman assignment. I am flattered by the fact that generally the first call they make is to me. So
Hell yeah.
That's
to
nice.
talk Superman, that's kind of cool. But when I was starting out, uh, I was influenced by the writers that I loved growing up. I was influenced by Steve Gerber, Steve Englehart, Jim Starlin, this crew in 1970s Marvel who were, this is about the same time as Fantastic Four 125 to bring it back around. This is about the time when you've got a crew of writers on board at Marvel who weren't trying to sound like Stan. Roy tried to sound like Stan. Denny O'Neil, when he was doing Marvel stuff in the 60s, was trying to sound like Stan.
Yeah.
This is the first group of writers who were trying to create their own voice. And I really responded to that. So they were an influence. And of all things, the writer Harlan Ellison was and is a huge influence on me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you're familiar with his work. I'm sad that I have to ask this at this point.
I'm not personally familiar.
But it's very emotional work. It's always very emotional, very, very like just intensely emotional work. And that's the key ingredient is that you can have the most intricate plot in the world. You can have the most interesting clockwork, plot in the world, but nobody cares. I mean, it's nice. It's a great thing to hang your story on. But at the end of the day, all people care about is emotion. That's what they care about. They know, like, you've seen a James Bond movie. I defy you to tell me the plot of any James Bond movie. That's not the part you remember, right?
Yeah.
You remember, the chase scenes and the love scenes and being tied to a wicker chair and all that stuff,
That
right?
is genuinely where my mind went was Daniel Craig in that chair getting a
That's-
whip, which is not, it's not the
Right.
best look.
That's what you stick.
memorable.
That's
Yeah.
the part that you come out with. Everybody, is so familiar with Spider-Man lifting that giant machine over his, off his shoulders. But, most people can't even tell you what happened before then and what happened after then.
Those are such different examples. This inspiring Spider-Man scene and when James Bond gets his balls whipped in a chair.
Right. But either way, just be in touch visually. And so Harlan was great about that. And I really took that from his work.
Yeah. Oh man, if this be my destiny, I think people do remember the plot before, isn't it? Isn't he like emotional over like Betty Brant? And he's like, "Oh man, Betty doesn't want me to be Spider-Man. She'll never love Spider-Man."
And May's sick as well.
Aunt May's sick.
Yeah, but do you remember?
Again.
Do you remember why he was where he was? Do you remember exactly where he was? Do you remember what happened next?
The master planner, the auto, something
Right.
like that.
See, very
like
vague,
that.
right?
Yeah, very vague. But I remember the moment. It's in a bunch of movies.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Exactly.
You're right.
It's in a bunch of movies.
All right. We get it. Mark Waid's never wrong. Do you have any emotional recommendations from that author you mentioned? Since I haven't heard of this author, and I'd love some recommendations.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know what's in print right now. He did a story called Shatter Day, SHA Shatter Day, which is really good. He won all kind of artistic awards with a story called Repent Harlequin, said the TikTok man, which was one of the
that
most...
just got banned in America, didn't it?
I don't know. It probably. Who knows? What time is it? Repent Harlequin, said the TikTok man, is probably his best known work, and that's because it's one of the most reprinted stories in the English language.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend if you can find a copy of that story.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Listen, I mean, if Mark Waid recommends it, I have to read it. Like, I can't,
He will.
I was waiting for you to dangle another book up and go, this is good stuff, Mark.
Yeah.
I got
Get your
All right, what else we got?
We're
Sand is going through the hourglass. What do we got?
Yeah.
All right, I'll do one last fan question. Then I know Tyler has another question that we can maybe end it off with. But this last fan question, Bruce Stevens says, since you started Justice League, I'd be interested to hear what you personally think are the most important parts of that team and how they're different from the Avengers.
Oh, good question.
Yeah. I mean, they're different than the Avengers because they're not a fighting force. I mean, that's the thing. The Justice League is the the Avengers is Moneyball. The Avengers is,
The man.
the perfect, fighting, the ones that are put together to be the perfect fighting force. The Justice League is the all-star game, right?
Mhm.
So I think to me that's tonally that's always been the difference, that they don't, you know, they don't necessarily have to hang out in the headquarters between missions like the Avengers tend to. They don't.
It's a
They
good
have
point,
their own
yeah.
lives. They have their own gigs.
Mm.
So it's more like, yeah, again, like it's more an all-star team.
Is
They're
we like
being
in the way
deployed
that
around the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
the Avengers are kind of there's Avengers characters like Janet or Hank or whatnot. Those are strictly Avengers characters, but you'd never say Superman is strictly a Justice League character.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I
Mhm.
don't know that you'd think of most anybody, especially in the last 10 years or so, as a you wouldn't think of them as a Justice League character.
Maybe
Mhm.
just
Unless,
Martian Manhunter, although New 52
yeah,
might not
Mm.
be
I'll
that,
give you
but
Martian Manhunter. Yeah.
That's a
yeah,
good one.
that might be the only
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Maybe one day it'll be Airwave.
And fingers crossed. I love that dude.
Hopefully.
He
So
seems.
my
Yeah.
final question, maybe something we can end it off on, is
Mm.
that I wanted to get more clarification on something you said around the election in November, where you had
I know where
put
this is
on
going. Yeah.
yes on
Okay.
Blue
Was there
Sky
an
you would
election?
put you would put that we would see a decline in your work following the results. I wonder if you could kind of clarify that, if you still feel that's true, if that was kind of a of the moment thing you put out there. I know a lot of people listening to this maybe feel that sort of like tiredness,
Yeah.
all the weight on their
Yeah.
shoulders. I just wondered if we can clarify that.
I mean, it was both in the moment and something I'd been thinking about for a long time, and something I still thought about after I put it down on paper. It's the struggle for me, and not alone in this, but the struggle for me is writing stories about values and things that we hold precious, and the beliefs that we have, and a basic goodness that is not shared by a much larger part of our demographic than I ever wanted to believe. And it's hard when the bad guys win, man. It is,
It feels
it
like
is,
Infinity War, doesn't it?
it really does. Oh, 14th Amendment, we don't need the Constitution. It's very dark. It's a very, very dark time. Not everybody watching this podcast is going to agree with that. That's fine. This is my own opinion, but man, these people, the foundation of superheroes, the foundation of their ethics and morals is just alien to millions and millions of Americans. And I understand, yeah. We need stories like that more than ever. Yeah. We need more inspiration more than ever. Yeah. I get that. That's easy to say. But when I'm sitting at the keyboard, it doesn't always keep me revved, right? There's just, I don't think my work has gotten, I don't think I have had the downslide in work, although I'm sure many people watching this podcast will
I
disagree.
don't see it.
But and
Me
they will
personally, I don't
gladly
see
tell
it.
you in the comments. But I don't see the slide in the work. What I do see it goes slower, and it is more difficult. It is just I'm not riding like the wind anymore, like I was about 6 months ago or a year ago. I feel like it's just a heavier stone to push up the hill every month.
Which is understandable. I'm not American. Harper here isn't American either.
No.
But
If it
we
makes you feel better, Mark
understand. And
Waid, down here in
Yeah.
Australia, we just drive through the desert in big cars and shoot flames at each other.
I know.
And
Spray
Tom
Chrome on
Hardy's
your
here.
teeth.
It's good stuff.
and
Yeah.
up here in
we-
Canada, we just make igloos. That's all we do up here. So,
Right, but both,
as a
but,
Canadian,
but in both of your countries, I'm sure the feeling is, what the fuck?
Yeah,
it
pretty much.
is. It
Pretty
is.
much.
Yeah. Harper
Yeah.
and I,
Pretty much
we
that.
discuss it together. We're just
What
like,
is
what is
wrong
going on?
with you people?
It was more like a again?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I still really appreciate all the work that you're making. Justice League has been, it is my favorite title right now. And before that, it was World's Finest. And I'm still loving World's Finest here. So it's just, I do appreciate all the work that you're putting into this. And even though I understand that it is getting more difficult to write, just because, Stan Lee said he's writing the world outside his window. And now when you look outside your window today, it might be a little difficult to
Yeah.
write about that, even though we're at DC instead of New York Marvel. But thank you.
You,
That's what I'm
you know,
saying.
in talking about this is good. In talking about it, I think I've landed on something I hadn't thought about before, which
that's
is
good.
that Yeah,
This is a
this is
productive
insight.
talk.
This
This
is
wasn't just
a
A
silly.
personal
Mark Waid
insight.
exclusive.
There, and it all comes down to my feelings about how I was writing and the things I was saying on Blue Sky. I think that what has happened post-election is that my idea of what high stakes are for a story has shifted a little bit, right? The the kind of way you would approach, hey, what are the high stakes in my Justice League story in, June of 2024 or whatever. It's different now that we're writing in an era where there were much higher stakes in play on a day-to-day level than there were in the grimmest superhero comics of 2024. It's hard to it's hard to it's hard to come up with threats and consequences and stakes. It's harder now than it was back then because we look around us and we have been introduced in the last couple of months to stakes and problems and crises that we never imagined. It's hard to wrap my head around.
Yeah, it's like as much as you write whatever character and like whatever villain Darkseid's coming in and whatever you would be thinking about like the real world and being like, and Darkseid's a big threat, but like in
Superman
your
could punch
reality
him.
are feeling, yeah, you're feeling like this isn't something that can be solved with the Justice League coming in and fighting a few aliens or something.
Right.
Like it's a more systematic problem.
Or to be more concrete, I was writing a script today where I was dealing with, okay, what is this villain showing up to steal? What are they here to grab? Is it a hydroelectric car? Is it what's some sort of experimental this, experimental that? And I step back and I'm like, I would have written that differently last year. This year I look at it and go, who cares? Like those are stupid stakes.
Yeah.
That's the idea of people, villains stealing something for their own. It feels like there's an easy way to do that wrong. There's an easy way to do that is like, those aren't stakes. Look around you. Those are stakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Marvel picked the right time for Doctor Doom to take over the world, I'll say.
Boy, did they. Boy, did they. Yeah. I guarantee nobody at Marvel thought, oh, God, what if it happened? Because nobody on the left thought this is actually going to happen. So
I thought about that with
said,
Daredevil Born Again and Kingpin being mayor and stuff in the new Daredevil series.
I know. All right, let's not end there. Let's.
Well, I have like one like selfish ask. Can you take the Flash title back, like the title of how many issues are written? Because Williamson passed you, dude, and you're back at DC for 4 years now. Come on, take it back.
Has he really passed me?
He did pass you. I added it up.
Yes.
I claim to be history of the Flash. So
all the specials, all the one shots, all the annuals, everything.
By like 3 issues.
Oh wow.
I'm like, dude, like, I know you have that one story where Wally time travels for the first time.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
It would be better if Mike Waringo was still around, RIP.
I know, but you know what? Yeah, okay, I'll put in my bid for a 4-issue miniseries just so I can catch up. Yeah.
You can see Mark like crack his fingers.
Yeah. I know. And I don't care what Chip Zdarsky says. I still wrote more consecutive issues of Daredevil than any other human being ever. He counts miniseries. I do not count miniseries. So
like Devil's Reign and whatnot.
No.
Okay.
Listen, I need you to beat Josh. I need you to take the title back. You're the king, man. Like, just take it back.
Look, Josh, but yeah, if the opportunity presented itself, I would like to have that record back. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's good to know.
All right, let's do another one. Let's do like one. Go out on a really good one.
Really going?
You got 100.
Anyone got a DCEU question for Mark?
For a really good one. I can't remember who wrote this, but I thought it was interesting. You obviously have plans for Justice League Unlimited moving forward for however long. Do you think we'll get spin-off series throughout this? I know we have the Atom Project, which has just started, I believe. But this person brought up a few years ago how we had Justice League Odyssey and Justice League Dark. Like, do you have plans for other Justice League teams that could possibly get their own mini-series or series? And even if you don't have plans, do you have any ideas like off the top of your head?
We have thoughts and we've had discussions. It is more a level of publishing bandwidth and creative bandwidth at this moment.
Of course.
But yeah, we've talked about here's a here's several spin-off books we could continue doing it. And I'm sure we'll continue to see some trickle out, but Challenger's question to some degree, it leans heavily on the Justice League Watchtower, Atom Project, as you said. I think there's room for that stuff.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I would personally love that. I love these moments in the books where, like you said, it's like these characters meet each other for the first time, but it's also team ups. Like Justice League Unlimited issue 3 that came out this week had like the Atoms fixing Plastic Man, and
yeah,
like
and when have you seen
the
Atom and Plastic Man together?
Yeah, exactly.
Issue 2. When have you seen Dr. Occult and Martian Manhunter together? Nobody has.
I don't know if I've ever seen Dr. Occult as well. Exactly.
In general, yeah. Just generally, yeah.
I had to look up who he was at first.
Unless unless it just doesn't work, every issue of Justice League should have in it one character that you probably never heard of before. It was Airwave, it was Dr. Occult, Xanthi from Spirit World, more recent. But I like doing that. I like doing the deep dive.
Characters no one's heard of. So you're going to do Tim Drake next, maybe?
You've heard Tim Drake. Everyone knows who Tim Drake
is. I know. I wish he was in more.
I wish he was in more. When he had a brown suit and he was named
Drake.
God, that was
when he was Drake, yeah.
When he was Drake.
Yeah.
Yikes.
God, that was a time.
So you're planning on having like other like members of the Bat family and the Superman family like work with the Justice League here. That's awesome. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that.
It really is just a matter of, I mean, you can't have 14 Justice Leaguers in every issue. You just can't, because then nobody gets serviced. So
exactly.
But I've got the giant list. I've got the spreadsheets that I've made. It's like I'm going to get around to everybody as soon as I can.
And there's no one off limits, right? DC doesn't say that you can't use a certain character.
Yeah, is there anyone off limits?
Sandman. That's about
yeah, that makes sense.
Dr. Manhattan Who Laughs is probably off limits if I had to guess.
That can make it work.
But boy, I wish it wasn't.
By and large, the only ones that are off limits are the ones who are doing something so big in their own book that I don't want to tamper. If it's like it's just a quick, Hal Jordan has a 2-issue adventure in space, nobody cares. But Aquaman's a good example of there's a big story happening in Aquaman right now that takes him away from Earth, and and for a length of time. So yeah, Aquaman's sort of off the board right now, but nobody's off limits. It's just timing as much as anything else.
Interesting. Okay. I would just like one last request, maybe in the future. I love this idea that you're doing where these characters are swapping powers. And for quite some time, there's moments in books where it's just like, hey, this person has a Green Lantern ring suddenly, or this person has a speedster power suddenly. There's one thing that happened in New 52 that I always bring up. And in Sinestro had a New 52 run. And at the end of that run, he gives Black Adam a Yellow Lantern ring. He says, use this ring in case of emergency, basically. And Black Adam.
And nobody's broken that glass.
He's never been brought up since. I keep thinking that Black Adam he owns a Yellow Lantern ring. He's never put it on.
That's pretty cool. All right,
someone asked Dwayne Johnson about that one.
I'll put that in the ideas file. That's really good.
If one day I read Justice League Unlimited issue like 30 or something, he puts on that ring.
Something good came out of New 52. Okay,
I will jump off.
Something good. One good thing.
Do a backflip.
One good thing. Yeah, Black Adam, Yellow Lantern. But yeah, thanks for. That's it.
Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. Thank you to friend of the show, acquaintance of the show.
Yeah, friend of the
show. Yes. Depends on how much we call, but thank you, friend of the show, Mark Waid, for appearing in our what was supposed to be 300 special. We were going to put you on the cover with 300s all around you, but now I guess we got to change it.
298.
I'll make the thumbnail into something.
Yeah. But thank you so much for appearing on the show. We always have a great time talking to you, and I guess we'll do it again another 4 years, like the Olympics or something.
Oh wait, Harper's got his hand up for one last question.
Oh, you know his name.
It's probably on the Zoom.
It's right. It's on the screen. Okay, flatter yourself. It's on the screen.
Mark, every week I annoy these guys by asking what they would like in the thumbnail for the YouTube video. So, Mark, what would you like in the thumbnail?
Good question. Superman of some. Pick your Superman shot. Just make sure he's got
Henry
trunks.
Cavill's Superman and Mark Waid.
Make sure he's got trunks. That's the only.
Sorry. Okay. All right, I can do that.
Yellow Lantern, Black.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Splitting out. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
You too.
Yo, that was good.
Good stuff. Wow,
that was good. If you're still watching on YouTube, what are you doing? Like, subscribe. Friend of the show, Mark Waid, demands it of you.
He did demand that just now.
Look at the plug. He got some great promo out of that. There was so many like little things that he brought up that like like future DC books and spin-offs and stuff, I'm like, a couple people in the audience might actually buy it.
Yeah, well, and
Saying he should pay us is all I'm saying.
There's something about Mark Waid that when we interview him, like, and last time too, I'm smiling ear to ear the entire time. Like
he's funny.
My face is
he's
smiling.
good, man. Oh my
he's
God.
funny. He's
Good
very
stuff.
charismatic. It's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Wonder Woman.
Yeah, oh man, that was so fucking funny.
Yeah.
At the end, he shot himself in the head and snapped his own neck. Like,
yeah, that's gonna get clipped out of
Damn.
context for the
He
Heroes
said
Story.
he
That's
wants
going on
to
Heroes
kill.
Story right there.
He says he wants to kill baby Mark Waid.
Coming up with Bat God. Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
We're bringing back Black Adam with the yellow ring.
Oh my God, yeah, dude,
I
you
put it
actually
out there
might.
finally.
Yeah, that
Let's
actually
go.
might happen.
But yeah,
That's
for
sick.
you, the listener, thank you for listening to us through what was supposed to be 300 episodes, but 298 episodes so far. Maybe we could get something to work for 300. Probably
I
not.
hope.
But
I mean, Hunter did say that this is our first guest of 2025, so I hope that is true, and I hope we get more. But I guess we'll see.
Got the vampire fangs ready, guys.
Yeah,
Well,
because
well,
next week we're interviewing Count Orlok.
I will
Yes,
say,
we are.
hey, if you listen to us weekly, next week there is no podcast, but we are continuing our D&D adventure.
Woo!
So D&D Season 2, Episode 2 will be out
Hell
next
yeah.
week.
Is that a really
Thank
annoying
you.
shake in the mic?
Oh, I dropped them all. Fuck.
What'd you
Oh,
roll?
no.
What'd you roll?
I rolled. Oh,
A nat 1. You gotta kill yourself.
you guys are not going to fucking believe this.
Oh
Dead
no.
set.
Is it
Check
20
it
or a
out.
1?
What if
Dead
Harper just
set. I
left
rolled.
and like
I'm
took us on
dragging
the trip?
stuff off the. It's a D20. I rolled a nat D20.
You rolled- we can't see
A
it.
nat 20.
There we go.
Yeah.
Up, up.
I
I
can't.
believe
you got
you.
it.
There we go.
There
Nat
you
20.
go.
Wow, that means it was a
Mark-
good.
Mark
That's
Waid.
insane.
Yeah. You didn't roll that, by the way. You did not.
I dropped
planted.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I forgot to
thank you
show
for
Mark Waid my
listening.
hot toys.
Yeah.
Let us know if you want. Let us know what guests you want us to interview
Yeah.
in this
We
year.
will try.
We will definitely try.
try.
Listen. we
James
will try.
Gunn is on the list.
Zack Snyder will be on the next episode, and we'll be asking
Yes.
him about Mark Waid comics.
Exactly. And then secretly we'll have Mark Waid halfway through the episode so they can argue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would watch that. I would just sit there with popcorn.
Yeah, we all mute and turn our cameras off.
Yes. All right. Yeah. Good
All right,
episode, boys.
thank you.
You guys,
Yeah.
We made
Like,
it.
subscribe, whatever. Do all the stuff.
all the stuff.
What do you say, Hunter? Blah.